Hi there, and welcome to the first episode of It's Camp. Actually wearing my YMCA Camp Eberhard tie-dye shirt. I'm Dave Meeker with Bringing Technology to You. And Outstanding Leadership for the Troubled Child, the story of George, is a story I used to give at staff training, Camp Eberhard, a long time ago. So I'm briefly going to touch on three parts of the story. Who's George? How did the counselors reach George? And what is outstanding leadership? Well, let's start with who's George. Well, this story was passed down to me through Kirby, one of the former execs at the South Bend Y. And George was a troubled child from the region that received D's in conduct all through grade school. They really didn't know why, but ADHD, squirrel, wasn't a diagnosis yet. But the tormenting by other kids in the school really beat on him because he was in third grade, but he was going to fifth grade math, and they just picked on him. And he often offset this pain with his humor, but not everyone always got his humor. But the only thing that seemed to reach him was Saturday mornings at the YMCA. And they had swimming lessons and all sorts of things in activity room, and that just seemed to resonate with him. So the grandparents decided to send him to Camp Eberhard because he was an out-of-control child. And it's something about passing through the gates of YMCA Camp Eberhard that made it really unique. So how did the counselors reach George? Well, they did reach him through positive encouragement, wacky humor, accepting that he was different. That's the big thing right there. And that has to do with a lot of the staff training that they do during the summer, is accepting people of all backgrounds. They motivated him to work on awards and get a sense of something doing great, which is what are the self-esteem, is building up their self-esteem by working on awards. They had 17 different program areas, and then they added a proficiency program that you reach so many awards, you had to reach them over time, you got a proficiency out of it. So it really gave him a self-esteem to him. And one of our alumni, Dr. Paul Marsh, did some work for the American Camping Association that talked about awards and esteem. But that's something for a different time, a different place. But that is something about Camp Eberhard in Three Rivers, Michigan that makes it really unique, is this proficiency program. So what's outstanding leadership? Well, it has to do with summer camp counselors are kind of like Marines. They have to improvise, adapt, and overcome. They have to take managed chaos or make managed chaos out of what seems out of control chaos. It's really, they know what pretty much is going on, but the outstanding part is always thinking that no matter how bad things are, if Kitty asks you, how are you doing today, it's outstanding. It may not be that word, but there's a lot to it. And that's why there's some counselors today that still see me today and say outstanding, because they know that's one of my favorite words. But it has to do with a comic, but that's a story for another day. But it's just thinking in the back of your mind that no matter how bad it is during any given day, they're actually going to talk about it and say, hey, this is really an outstanding. I like what I'm doing, and you're going to have a great time too. And just sometimes giving that troubled child just a little bit of that extra, okay, it's going to be okay, helps them out. So in some cases, the camp counselors helped George give him the comic relief. There were some clowns that jumped off this big tower. They had a lot of fun, and he thought that was funny too. So it helped relieve some of that pain. But again, this story of George is just a story. If you're a camp counselor today, I ask you to, before you go and try any of the things that we talk about in this series, to check with your leadership, because what was okay in the 60s and 70s may not be okay today. But on the request of George, this story has been kept private except for a few stories within the confines of Camp Eberhard that I would give during staff training. I believe the last one I gave was about 15 years ago. But the way you can help is you can please share this story, like it, or even better, if you're a camp counselor or you've been around camp and you have a story to tell, that would be great, especially if you're from Camp Eberhard. And Camp Eberhard's in Three Rivers, Michigan. It was one of the last YMCA camps to go total YMCA. And for a while, we didn't have the Eberhard Triangle. We've got it back. We've got a new camp director. It's awesome. But you may ask, why am I calling a lot of these things It's Camp? For those of you who've been following me for a while, I have an It's Camp series on video. Well, there was a maintenance guy that people would come up to and they would complain about this, complain about that. And he'd either say, well, it is what it is, or he would say, it's camp. In other words, you sometimes have to make do with the shirt on your back, the supplies you're given, and make the best of it and make it an outstanding summer for the kids. Because when you're helping those kids have an outstanding time, they go home and tell mom. And mom is normally the person that makes the decision on summer camps. So tune into our series again. We're going to try one of these tomorrow, and Jennifer may even bring her saxophone. But remember, you can not only take the leadership you learn as a summer camp counselor, you can carry it on and pass it along to others. And that's what I always tell people when they're looking to hire someone. Look on their resume. If it says summer camp counselor, they probably know how to take chaos and turn it into managed chaos. So again, this is Dave Meeker with my new series called It's Camp, ... And this is going to be the part about the story of George, our outstanding leadership for the troubled child. Thanks again for tuning in.